I wanted to talk about a little smidgen of really good news we got out of Africa this week. So, for those of you who are not necessarily paying attention to this, there is a malaria vaccine that just came out um, of Africa. It's very exciting. Now, for those of you who do not live in Africa, malaria is a virus carried by mosquitoes. It causes all sorts of problems and it kills in huge numbers. Now, the old solutions were to try and get medicines that could cure malaria once people had it and use mosquito nets, right? So, to stop the mosquitoes from getting in the first place, because mosquitoes are the primary transportation vessel for malaria. And these had some levels of efficacy and such, but sometimes the medicines weren't available. Sometimes mosquito nets, they had holes in them or they were difficult to procure. The other thing too is obviously you can be bitten by a mosquito while you're out in the open, right? It's not just when you're sleeping that you can get bitten by a mosquito, as I'm sure many people who have been sitting outside all summer are aware of, right? You can get bitten by a mosquito anywhere. And in fact, sometimes a mosquito can be carrying a disease that does not exist in the area that you are in. So, for example, when I was an undergraduate, I was bitten by a mosquito and I caught West Nile virus. Now, West Nile virus does not exist mostly in the United States. So, it's entirely possible to get these diseases from mosquitoes that are sharing drinking water and are creating little kind of factories in smaller animals where malaria can grow and malaria and West Nile virus and these other diseases can grow and such. So anyway, um, this vaccine is headed to the WHO for approval. So let's just talk about the stats of this vaccine. So it has an efficacy of about 39%. Now, it's a little low for what we would want it to be, right? The WHO has said that they want 50% at least for a malaria vaccine, but honestly, this is just to prevent you from getting malaria. Now, apparently, the vaccine prevents you, like if you do get malaria, it does prevent you from dying, and it prevents you from getting very, very ill. So even if it doesn't necessarily stop you from getting malaria, it does keep you alive long enough to fight it off, which is a really important big step because malaria was a large scale killer in Africa. So the hope is that these vaccines can be pumped out for free, and that they can be pumped out by lots of different organizations, and that people in Africa who are suffering from malaria, or who are in areas where malaria is likely are able to get this vaccine. Which brings us back to the issue of vaccine equity. So, as I've been talking about on this show for many weeks now about the COVID vaccines and the COVAX program, it's important that we think about vaccines as being necessary for everyone in the world to get, especially for diseases that spread very quickly. Obviously, in the past few weeks, I've been talking about the coronavirus, right, which we have been experiencing. I mentioned earlier in this show, we're still in a pandemic. So it is very difficult to get everyone vaccinated when there are not lots of places that can make the vaccine. And for those of you who've been following the vaccine fairness fight as far as coronavirus is concerned, you'll know that many rich countries are essentially hogging all the vaccines, even to the point where in the United States, for example, we've let millions of vaccines go bad because we refuse to share them with people who need them, right? And there are programs to try and make this better. I don't really want to go through all that again. But the reason I bring this up is now that we have a vaccine for malaria, we need to learn from the lesson of the coronavirus vaccine, and we need to allow for the formula for this vaccine to be shared with every plant that can possibly make these. Governments need to be able to acquire them in large numbers. There need to be large efforts made to ensure that all of Africa and anywhere else in the world where malaria is a huge issue, I believe there's parts of India where this is the case, get the vaccine, because we could eliminate malaria. Or if we don't eliminate malaria, we could create a situation where getting malaria is essentially as difficult as getting a common cold for a non-immunocompromised person, which is to say, it doesn't hurt you a ton. Maybe it knocks you out for a few days, but at the end of the day, you recover and you're alive. Right now, malaria is an incredible killer, and it kills fairly quickly as well. So it's important that now that we have a solution to stop people from dying of malaria and even stop some people from getting malaria, that we distribute this as quickly as possible. Now, I believe that this vaccine will likely have that effect. I think there was enough outcry from the coronavirus vaccine that people are thinking about vaccines in different ways, but it's hard to know. And truly, I don't know. But I'm hopeful that now that we have a vaccine and there has been, I was watching a conversation on Al Jazeera about this vaccine, and essentially, the people that they were talking to from different African countries was a gentleman from Nigeria was saying, "Look, 39% is good enough, right? We'll take it." So there's a obvious demand for these vaccines. So we need to now make sure that the vaccines can get to the people who need them because malaria is so dangerous, eliminating it is really the best option, right? We were able to do so with polio and smallpox and a bunch of different diseases we were able to eliminate by use of vaccines. It would be really awesome if we could add malaria to that list. So I just wanted to share some good news and reinforce the necessity of vaccine equity. I hope that everyone who needs a malaria vaccine can get one, and I hope that either this is the end all be all for malaria, or we develop additional malaria vaccines. But at the end of the day, it's a great step forward for humanity that we finally have a solution to this terrible killer.